The video had no sound. That was the part people remembered later. No music from the nightclub. No screaming. No breaking glass. Just flashing red lights, bodies turning in panic, and an 85-pound German shepherd dragging a senator's son across a marble floor while everyone watched in frozen silence. At 2:13 a.m., the footage appeared online without warning. 14 seconds long. Shot from somewhere above the VIP balcony inside a private nightclub 3 blocks from Capitol Hill. The camera angle shook slightly, like whoever recorded it had been afraid to stay still too long. In the grainy light, men in tailored suits stumbled backward. Women covered their mouths. Phones lifted into the air one after another like candles at a vigil. And in the center of it all was Rex. His black and tan coat glistened beneath violet neon lights, muscles tight beneath his FBI harness, amber eyes locked forward with terrifying focus. He wasn't barking. That was what unsettled people the most. The dog moved with absolute certainty, jaws clamped onto the sleeve of a young man, trying desperately to pull away. Ethan Whitmore, 26 years old, son of Senator Arthur Whitmore of Virginia. America knew that face. The expensive haircut, the polished smile, the kind of confidence money teaches early. But in the leaked footage, Ethan looked different. Pale, sweating, panicked. His loafers scraped helplessly across the nightclub floor as Rex dragged him past overturned champagne glasses and stunned onlookers. The clip ended the moment Ethan shouted something toward the crowd. No one could hear the words. By sunrise, the internet had already chosen sides. Some called the dog dangerous. Others called him a hero. Cable news stations replayed the footage beside headlines soaked in outrage. FBI K-9 attacks senator's son. Questions rise after nightclub incident. Who released the video? Outside Washington, rain crawled slowly down the black windows of the FBI field office, while Agent Caleb Hayes sat alone in a dim conference room, watching the footage for the 37th time. The stale scent of burnt coffee hung in the air. So did silence. Caleb was 42, broad-shouldered, gray-eyed, the kind of man who carried exhaustion like an old military injury. A former Marine. Former hostage recovery. The scar beneath his jaw caught the pale glow of the laptop screen as the video looped again. Rex pulling. Ethan resisting. Fear spreading through the room like smoke. Caleb leaned back slowly. Across from him, Rex lay quietly beneath the table, ears twitching once at the soundless images flickering overhead. The German shepherd looked calm now. Too calm. Caleb had worked with K-9 units for nearly 11 years. He knew aggression. He knew false alerts. Rex had never given one. Not once. The dog had found trafficked children hidden behind motel walls in Arizona. He had located survivors beneath collapsed concrete after hurricanes along the Gulf Coast. And 3 years earlier, Rex had stopped a kidnapper outside Richmond before a single shot was fired. Dogs like Rex did not react without reason. Caleb reached for the remote, freezing the frame just before the clip ended. Ethan Whitmore's face twisted toward the camera. Behind him, barely visible beneath the nightclub's red glow, stood a service hallway door cracked open exactly 3 inches wide. Rex stared at that door in every frame. Not Ethan. The door. And suddenly, beneath the low hum of fluorescent lights, Caleb felt the same cold sensation he used to feel before raids overseas. The quiet instinct that something terrible had already happened, and nobody inside that nightclub wanted the truth to walk out. Rain covered Washington before dawn like a dark veil pulled gently across the city. The streets near Judiciary Square glimmered beneath traffic lights and passing taxis, reflections stretching long across wet pavement while distant sirens echoed somewhere beyond the Potomac. Inside the underground garage beneath the FBI field office, Caleb Hayes stood beside his vehicle in complete silence, one hand resting against Rex's neck. The German shepherd remained motionless except for the slow rise and fall of his chest. Come outside. Working inside. Caleb knew that look. He had seen it overseas in Afghanistan before raids went wrong, before doors opened to things men carried for years afterward. Rex lifted his head slightly as another black SUV rolled into the garage. Assistant Director Naomi Price stepped out first, heels clicking sharply against concrete. Tall, composed, silver streaks threading through her dark hair, Naomi carried the exhausted look of someone fighting 3 wars at once. One with the media, one with politics, and one inside the bureau itself. The senator called twice, she said quietly. The attorney general called once. Everyone wants answers. Caleb did not respond immediately. He watched water drip slowly from the edge of the concrete ceiling. Rex alerted for a reason. Naomi folded her arms against the cold. The official report says Ethan Whitmore resisted during a narcotics sweep. Caleb finally looked at her. Rex was not searching for narcotics. For a moment, neither spoke. The garage hummed softly with fluorescent lights overhead. Somewhere nearby, an engine ticked as it cooled. Naomi glanced toward the dog. Rex's ears twitched at the sound of footsteps above them, but his eyes stayed fixed on the darkness beyond the parking ramp. Alert. Listening. You know what they are saying online? Naomi asked softly. They are calling him unstable. Caleb's jaw tightened slightly. That dog has better instincts than most agents I have worked with. Naomi sighed. I know. She handed him a thin manila folder. Inside was a photograph of Ethan Whitmore stepping out of the nightclub earlier that evening, surrounded by friends and private security. Expensive watches. Designer jackets. Smiles polished for cameras. But Caleb noticed something else immediately. A young woman partially hidden near the back of the frame. Blonde ponytail. Black bartender uniform. Nervous eyes turned toward the exit. Who is she? Naomi glanced down. Lena Brooks. 24. Worked private events at the club 3 nights a week. Caleb looked back at the photo. Where is she now? Naomi hesitated too long before answering. Nobody knows. A cold breeze slipped through the garage entrance, carrying the smell of rain and diesel fuel. Rex suddenly stood. Not aggressive. Focused. The dog turned toward the elevator leading upstairs and released a low rumble deep. In his chest, Caleb felt the tension instantly move through the leash. What is it, boy? Rex stared upward without blinking. Then Caleb heard it. Faint voices echoing from the elevator shaft above. 2 men talking quickly, nervously. A moment later, the elevator doors opened. 3 men in tailored suits stepped into the garage, carrying camera equipment and folded light stands. News crews. One of them spotted Caleb immediately. Agent Hayes, the reporter called out. Did your dog attack Senator Whitmore's son without provocation? Caleb ignored him and began walking toward his truck. Flashbulbs exploded across the concrete walls. Questions followed like gunfire. Was the Bureau pressured to cover this up? Did the dog malfunction? Is Rex being removed from active duty? Rex stopped walking halfway to the vehicle. His posture changed instantly. Head low, ears forward, eyes locked onto one specific cameraman standing near the back of the group. The man froze for half a second beneath the dog's stare. Then he turned away too quickly and reached for the elevator button. Caleb watched the movement carefully. Rex gave another low growl. Not loud. Certain. And as the elevator doors slid shut behind the cameraman, Caleb caught a glimpse of something hanging from the side pocket of the man's equipment bag. A black VIP wristband from the nightclub. By 8 o'clock that morning, Washington had already turned the story into theater. Satellite vans crowded the sidewalks outside the FBI field office, while reporters stood beneath umbrellas rehearsing outrage into live microphones. Rainwater streamed along the curbs beside camera cables and coffee cups, the city moving with the restless energy of people sensing scandal in the air. Inside the building, Caleb Hayes walked through the 5th-floor corridor with Rex beside him, ignoring the stares from younger agents pretending not to look. The German Shepherd moved silently across polished tile floors, nails clicking softly beneath fluorescent lights. Come again. But Caleb knew better. Rex was thinking. Dogs like Rex always were. The conference room overlooking Pennsylvania Avenue smelled faintly of printer toner and cold air conditioning. A television mounted on the wall flashed image after image of Ethan Whitmore smiling beside celebrities, senators, and campaign donors. Golden boy. Political royalty. Untouchable. One news anchor called him the victim of federal overreach. Another questioned whether the Bureau had lost control of its K-9 division. Caleb muted the television with a tired sigh. Then the door opened. Deputy Director Marcus Vail entered carrying a tablet beneath one arm. Tall, white-haired, expensive navy suit without a wrinkle. The kind of man who survived Washington by never appearing surprised. Close the door, Vail said quietly. Caleb obeyed. Rex remained near the window, watching rain slide slowly down the glass. Vail tossed the tablet onto the conference table. Headlines flooded the screen. Public trust in FBI drops after nightclub incident. Senator demands internal review. This thing is becoming radioactive, Vale muttered. The Whitmore family wants a public apology. Caleb crossed his arms. For what? Vale's expression hardened. For humiliating a senator's son in front of half the city. Caleb looked toward Rex. My dog reacted to something. Your dog, Vale replied carefully, cannot testify before Congress. Silence settled heavily between them. Outside the window, police lights reflected faintly against wet streets far below. Caleb finally stepped closer to the table. There is a missing woman tied to that club. Vale did not answer immediately. That bothered Caleb more than denial would have. Lena Brooks, Caleb continued. Bartender. Disappeared after the party. Vale removed his glasses slowly. Her phone last pinged near Union Station around 1:30 in the morning. And there is no evidence connecting Ethan Whitmore to her disappearance. Caleb stared at him for a long moment. You already looked into this. Vale's silence confirmed everything. Rex suddenly turned from the window. His ears stiffened. The dog walked toward the television, still flashing silent images from the nightclub. Then he stopped directly in front of the frozen frame, showing Ethan surrounded by security guards near the VIP staircase. A low growl vibrated deep in Rex's chest. Caleb stepped closer. Pause it there. Vale frowned slightly but obeyed. Caleb narrowed his eyes at the screen. Most people would have missed it entirely. A reflection hidden in the mirrored wall behind Ethan. Just for a second. A woman in black, clothing being guided toward the service hallway. Head lowered. One arm reaching backward as if trying not to disappear into the crowd. Caleb felt cold settle into his stomach. Zoom in. The image blurred slightly, but the figure remained visible enough. Blonde ponytail. Bartender uniform. Lena. Vale rubbed his forehead wearily. That footage was already reviewed. Not carefully enough. Caleb pointed toward the mirrored reflection. Rex saw her. Vale looked toward the dog standing rigid beneath the television glow. You really believe that? Caleb's voice stayed low. I think Rex knew somebody in that club was afraid. Before Vale could answer, the conference room phone rang sharply. Once. Twice. Vale picked up immediately. His expression changed after only 3 seconds. Who? He asked quietly. Caleb watched the color drain from the older man's face. Then Vale lowered the receiver slowly and looked toward him. The cameraman from the garage this morning, he said. They found his news van abandoned near the Anacostia River. Rex stood up instantly. The rain stopped just after noon, but the city still felt drenched in something heavier than weather. Gray clouds lingered low over Washington while traffic crawled beside government buildings wrapped in steel barricades and television crews. Caleb Hayes drove east across the Frederick Douglass Bridge with one hand on the wheel and the other resting near Rex's harness in the back seat. The German shepherd had not settled once during the drive. He remained standing, eyes fixed forward, body tense beneath the dim light filtering through tinted windows. The abandoned news van sat beneath the shadow of an old warehouse near the Anacostia River, surrounded by patrol cars and yellow barriers fluttering in the cold breeze. Agents moved quietly through puddles reflecting dull afternoon light. No sirens. No shouting. Just the low hum of generators and the distant cry of gulls circling above the water. Caleb stepped out into the sharp smell of wet concrete and river mud. Rex jumped down beside him immediately, nose already working the air. Easy, Caleb murmured softly. Deputy Director Vale waited near the open van doors with 2 investigators from Metro Police. His face looked older than it had that morning. No sign of the cameraman, Vale said quietly. Wallet still inside. Keys too. Caleb glanced into the van. One camera tripod lay overturned near the editing station. Coffee spilled across a stack of production notes. A jacket hung from the driver's seat as though someone planned to return in 5 minutes and never did. Rex stepped toward the vehicle slowly. Focused. Intentional. The dog sniffed once near the rear bumper, then froze. Caleb noticed it instantly. He found something. One investigator shifted uncomfortably. We already checked for narcotics. That is not what he is tracking, Caleb replied. Rex moved past the van toward the loading docks behind the warehouse. His pace quickened. Claws scraped across cracked asphalt while his ears remained rigid and forward. Caleb followed closely, rainwater soaking through his boots as they crossed beneath rusted steel beams dripping from the earlier storm. The farther Rex moved from the road, the quieter the world became. No traffic. No reporters. Only wind moving through broken windows high above them. Then Rex stopped beside a dented metal service door hidden near the back alley. The German shepherd released a low growl deep in his throat and stared directly at the rusted handle. Caleb exchanged a glance with Vale. This building belonged to anyone. One detective checked his phone. Listed under a hospitality investment group. Caleb frowned slightly. Connected to the nightclub? The detective nodded slowly. Rex pawed once against the door. Sharp. Urgent. Caleb reached for the handle and pulled. Locked. But as he stepped back, something caught his attention near the base of the wall. A small black object, half hidden beneath a rain gutter. He crouched slowly and picked it up. A camera memory card. Wet but intact. Vale's expression darkened immediately. Get tech. Down here now. Inside the warehouse, the air smelled stale and cold like forgotten machinery. Dust floated through weak strips of daylight cutting between boarded windows. Flashlights swept across stacks of unused restaurant furniture and crates covered in gray tarps. Rex moved ahead of everyone, nose low, tail rigid. Then suddenly, he veered left toward a narrow hallway lined with old wine racks. Caleb felt his pulse quicken. At the far end of the corridor sat another steel door. This one slightly open. Rex stopped in front of it and looked back once at Caleb, waiting, trusting him to follow. Caleb pushed the door wider. Inside was a small surveillance room no bigger than a walk-in closet. Monitors lined one wall, most powered off, but one screen still flickered faintly through static. A frozen image stared back at them from the grainy security feed. The nightclub VIP hallway. Timestamped 1:42 a.m. And standing in the center of the frame was Ethan Whitmore beside two security guards while Lena Brooks appeared behind them looking frightened and unsteady beneath the harsh red lights. Caleb stepped closer to the monitor. Then he noticed something else. In the corner of the screen, barely visible near the elevator entrance, stood the cameraman from the garage. Alive, holding his phone up toward the hallway, recording everything. The surveillance room felt colder the longer they stood inside it. Dust drifted through the weak glow of static monitors while old ventilation pipes rattled softly overhead like distant thunder trapped inside the walls. Caleb Hayes stared at the frozen image on the screen without blinking. Ethan Whitmore near the elevator. Lena Brooks behind him. The cameraman recording from the far corner. Every instinct inside Caleb told him this was only the beginning. Vale stepped closer to the monitor, lowering his voice. Can you enhance it? One of the tech agents connected a portable drive into the ancient system while Rex remained near the doorway, alert and restless. The German shepherd had not taken his eyes off the hallway outside for several minutes. Caleb noticed the subtle signs immediately. Ears angled toward sounds too distant for humans. Muscles tense beneath dark fur. Listening. Waiting. The footage flickered once before finally continuing forward in grainy silence. Lena moved first. She looked frightened now, glancing repeatedly toward the service exit as if searching for someone in the crowd. Ethan said something to her Caleb could not hear. One of the security guards stepped closer. Then the image froze again beneath digital interference. Damn it, the tech muttered quietly. The file is corrupted. Caleb leaned closer to the screen. Back it up 3 seconds. The footage rolled backward slowly frame by frame. That was when Caleb noticed it. Lena's right hand. She was holding something small near her apron pocket before the image distorted. Zoom there. Pixels sharpened carefully until the object finally became visible. A silver keycard. Not nightclub property. FBI evidence tags were color-coded. Hospital access cards were not. Vale narrowed his eyes. What hospital uses silver credentials? One of the detectives answered softly from behind them. St. Jude Medical Center downtown. Caleb exchanged a look with Vale instantly. St. Jude had hosted a political fundraiser earlier that same evening attended by Senator Whitmore and several campaign donors. Rain tapped faintly against the warehouse windows as silence filled the room again. Then Rex growled. Low. Immediate. Caleb turned. The dog stood rigid now, staring toward the hallway beyond the surveillance room. A second later came the sound. Footsteps. Soft but fast. Somebody moving through the warehouse. Federal agents. One detective shouted. Show yourself. No response. Only the distant slam of a metal door somewhere deeper inside the building. Rex exploded forward before Caleb could finish the command. The leash snapped tight through Caleb's hand as the German Shepherd charged into the dark hallway with terrifying speed. Rex! Caleb sprinted after him, boots pounding against cracked concrete while flashlights bounced wildly across dusty walls and abandoned crates. The warehouse opened into a massive storage floor lined with old wine shelves and catering equipment draped beneath stained tarps. Somewhere ahead, footsteps echoed. Again, running now. Rex darted left between two storage aisles, nose low, tracking hard. Caleb followed close behind until he caught sight of movement near a loading exit at the far end of the room. A man in a black rain jacket shoved through the side door into the alley outside. Rex lunged after him instantly. The cold wind outside hit like ice. Rainwater dripped from fire escapes overhead while tires hissed across nearby streets. Caleb reached the alley just in time to see Rex corner the man against a chain-link fence. The German Shepherd barked once. Sharp. Commanding. The man froze, breathing hard beneath the yellow glow of a security light. Young. Mid-30s. Dark beard soaked with rain. Caleb recognized him immediately. The cameraman from the garage. Alive. Terrified. Please. The man whispered before Caleb could even speak. I tried to go to the police. Rex remained planted between them, eyes locked onto the stranger's trembling hands. Caleb stepped closer slowly. Then why run? The man swallowed hard, glancing nervously toward the street beyond the alley. Because they know I kept the original footage. Caleb's expression hardened. Who knows? The cameraman looked toward Rex first, then back to Caleb. People close to the senator. And somewhere above them, hidden beyond the rain and city noise, a phone began ringing inside the warehouse. The ringing stopped before anyone could reach the warehouse office. One sharp burst of sound cutting through the rain-soaked silence. Then nothing again except the distant hum of traffic rolling across the bridge beyond the river. Caleb Hayes stood in the alley watching the cameraman carefully while Rex remained planted between them like a living wall. The young man's hands trembled despite the cold. Water dripped from his beard onto the cracked pavement below. My name is Daniel Mercer, he said quietly. Freelance videographer. I was hired to film the fundraiser upstairs before the nightclub party started. Caleb kept his voice low. And you recorded something you were not supposed to see. Daniel nodded once. I thought it was just another rich kid party at first. He glanced toward the warehouse entrance. Nervously. Then I saw her. Thunder rolled faintly over the city while agents secured the alley behind them. Rex finally eased his stance slightly, though his amber eyes never left Daniel's face. Caleb noticed something then. Fear. Real fear carried a smell dogs recognized instantly. Sweat sharpened by panic. Breathing too shallow. Tiny muscle tremors beneath the skin. Rex was not preparing to attack. He was reading him. Where is the original footage? Caleb asked. Daniel swallowed hard. Hidden. Where? Daniel hesitated too long. Rex stepped forward one pace. Not aggressive. Certain. The cameraman shut his eyes briefly. St. Jude Medical Center, he whispered. Caleb frowned. Why there? Because Lena worked there part-time before the nightclub hired her. Rain tapped softly against the metal fence beside them. She told me something felt wrong about the fundraiser, Daniel continued. Important donors. Security teams everywhere. Private rooms nobody was allowed near. Caleb felt the pieces shifting slowly into place. What happened after the nightclub? Daniel looked down at his shaking hands. I followed Ethan's security detail through the service corridor because Lena looked terrified. I filmed everything from the hallway mirror. His voice cracked slightly. Then one of the guards saw me. Vale stepped closer from the warehouse entrance. Why not turn the footage over immediately? Daniel laughed bitterly beneath his breath. Because by sunrise my apartment had been searched and my editor stopped answering calls. Silence settled heavily again. Somewhere nearby, a freight train horn echoed low through the damp evening air. Caleb studied the young man carefully. Exhausted eyes. Sleepless. Terrified. But telling the truth. Rex knew it too. The German Shepherd finally lowered his head slightly and stepped back beside Caleb's leg. Trust earned. What did Lena give you? Caleb asked quietly. Daniel blinked in surprise. How did you know she gave me something? Caleb thought about the silver hospital keycard visible in the footage. Because she was trying to protect something before she disappeared. Daniel reached slowly into his jacket pocket while Rex watched every movement with absolute focus. He removed a folded hospital visitor pass stained by rainwater and nervous hands. St. Jude Medical Center. Level B access. Caleb turned it over. Written faintly across the back in blue ink were 3 words. Room B, 12 storage. Vale looked toward Caleb immediately. Hospital storage. Daniel nodded quickly. She told me if anything happened to her, somebody needed to look there. Caleb's jaw tightened. Look for what? Daniel shook his head. She never said. Suddenly headlights swept across the alley entrance. Black SUVs turning slowly off the street one after another. Unmarked. Tinted windows. Too many for coincidence. Rex reacted instantly. Ears forward. Body rigid again. A deep growl rolled through his chest like distant thunder. Caleb turned toward the approaching vehicles as doors began opening beneath the rain. Men in dark suits stepped out calmly, moving with the quiet confidence of people used to authority. One of them held up a badge. Secret Service. Another man adjusted his coat and spoke without emotion. Agent Hayes, he called across the alley. Senator Whitmore would like this matter handled privately. Rex bared his teeth for the first time that night. Rain drifted sideways through the alley beneath the harsh white glow of security lights, while the black SUVs idled quietly at the curb like patient predators. The men standing beside them never raised their voices. They did not need to. Expensive coats. Polished shoes darkened by rainwater. Eyes trained to remain calm even when carrying threats. Caleb Hayes stepped slightly in front of Daniel Mercer without realizing he had done it. Old Marine instincts. Protect the frightened first. Rex stood shoulder to knee beside him, teeth barely visible now beneath curled lips, the low growl in his chest vibrating through the cold night air. The man identifying himself as Secret Service lowered his badge slowly. Nobody wants this situation escalating, he said. The senator is concerned about misinformation spreading online. Caleb's gray eyes never left him. Funny way of showing concern. The man ignored the remark. You have a frightened witness, a missing bartender, and media hysteria spiraling out of control. We are offering a safer solution. Vale stepped forward carefully. Secret Service does not handle nightclub investigations. For the first time, one of the suited men glanced toward Vale with visible irritation. We handle threats to protected individuals. Caleb heard it immediately. Not justice. Protection. The rain intensified slightly, tapping against the chain-link fence behind them like restless fingers. Daniel swallowed hard beside Caleb. They followed me this morning, he whispered quietly. 2 black sedans outside my apartment. Rex's ears twitched toward him instantly. Listening. Reading fear again. Caleb rested one hand against the dog's harness. You are under federal protection now. The Secret Service agent gave a thin smile that never reached his eyes. Agent Hayes, with respect, you do not currently have authorization to make that promise. Silence. Heavy and dangerous. Then one of the SUV doors opened behind the agents. A tall older man stepped out beneath a black umbrella held by another aide. Senator Arthur Whitmore himself. Even in the rain, he carried the polished calm of a man who had spent decades shaking hands beneath cameras. Silver hair, dark overcoat, controlled posture. But his eyes looked exhausted. Not guilty. Tired. Like someone watching a house quietly catch fire from inside. Enough, the senator said softly. The agents stepped aside immediately. Arthur Whitmore approached Caleb slowly, careful not to startle Rex, though the German shepherd's stare followed every movement with surgical focus. Beautiful animal, the senator murmured. Caleb did not answer. The older man looked briefly toward Daniel Mercer. Young man, I understand you believe you witnessed something troubling. Daniel stared at the ground. I know what I saw. The senator nodded sadly. And I believe you saw my son behaving recklessly. Caleb narrowed his eyes slightly. That is not all he saw. For the first time, a crack appeared in the senator's composure. Small, brief, but real. Rain slid down the umbrella edge beside his face while distant thunder rolled somewhere beyond the Capitol skyline. Agent Hayes, Arthur Whitmore said quietly. There are powerful people connected to that club. Donors, diplomats, men whose names never appear in newspapers. Caleb's voice remained cold. Then maybe they should. The senator exhaled slowly, almost weary. You still think this is about politics? Rex suddenly stepped forward one pace. Not toward the senator. Toward the rear SUV. His growl deepened instantly. Caleb turned. A figure sat inside the dark vehicle, barely visible through the rain-covered window. Young, male, watching them. Ethan Whitmore. Their eyes met for only a second before Ethan looked away sharply. But Rex did not move. The German Shepherd stared at the SUV with the same fixed intensity he had shown inside the nightclub. The same certainty. Caleb felt cold realization settle into his chest. Rex was not reacting to fear anymore. He was reacting to recognition. The senator noticed it too. His shoulders lowered slightly beneath the rain. "My son has made mistakes," he said quietly. "But there are worse men involved in this than him." Caleb looked toward the SUV again. "Then tell me where Lena Brooks is." The senator closed his eyes briefly, just for a moment. And when he opened them again, the old politician was gone. What remained looked only like a father standing in the rain beside something he could no longer control. "St. Jude," he whispered. "Basement records wing. Room B12. Then Rex barked sharply toward the SUV as Ethan Whitmore suddenly slammed the door shut from inside. St. Jude Medical Center stood quiet beneath the storm clouds like a ship drifting through darkness. Most of the upper floors had already dimmed for the night, windows glowing faint amber against the wet streets below, while ambulances rested near the emergency entrance beneath sheets of cold rain. Caleb Hayes parked 2 blocks away, without lights or sirens. No reporters. No marked vehicles. Only him, Rex, Vale, and Daniel Mercer moving through the sleeping city beneath the low hum of distant traffic. The hospital lobby smelled of antiseptic, floor polish, and burnt coffee left too long on warming plates. A tired security guard glanced up briefly from his desk as the group entered, then quickly looked back down after noticing federal credentials. Rex moved silently beside Caleb, claws soft against polished tile, nose lifting occasionally toward scents drifting through the building. Nervous nurses, cleaning chemicals, faint traces of fear hidden beneath ordinary life. Caleb pulled the silver access card from his pocket as they approached the restricted elevator leading underground. Level B. The doors opened with a dull mechanical chime. As the elevator descended, silence pressed tightly around them. Daniel rubbed his shaking hands together while Vale stared at the flickering floor numbers overhead. Rex remained perfectly still until the elevator reached the basement. Then his ears lifted sharply. The doors slid open into darkness. The records wing stretched long and narrow beneath pale, emergency lighting. Rows of old storage shelves cast crooked shadows across the concrete floor, while ventilation fans rattled softly somewhere overhead. Caleb drew a flashlight slowly. "Stay close." They moved carefully through the corridor, footsteps echoing against metal cabinets and locked archive rooms. Water dripped faintly through old pipes. Somewhere far away a machine beeped steadily like a distant heartbeat. Then Rex stopped. His body stiffened instantly beside a faded sign reading B12 storage. Caleb felt it immediately. That quiet instinct again. The same feeling before doors overseas opened onto things men carried forever afterward. The room appeared empty at first glance. Dusty shelves. Old medical records boxed in stacks. Broken office furniture pushed into corners. But Rex pulled hard toward the far wall, where several supply cabinets stood partially open. Caleb followed him carefully. The German Shepherd pressed his nose against a narrow maintenance door hidden behind the shelving units and released a deep, urgent bark. "There," Daniel whispered. Caleb yanked the door open. Cold air spilled out from a small utility chamber no larger than a walk-in freezer. And inside, wrapped in a hospital blanket near the wall, sat Lena Brooks. Alive, pale, exhausted. Her eyes widened beneath the flashlight beam before filling instantly with tears. Rex reached her first. The German Shepherd lowered himself gently beside her, tail still, posture calm, now as Lena pressed trembling fingers into the thick fur around his neck. "Easy," Caleb said softly, crouching beside her. "You are safe now." Lena tried speaking, but her voice cracked from dehydration and fear. Vale immediately called for medical assistance, while Daniel stood frozen in stunned silence near the doorway. Caleb noticed bruising around Lena's wrists from restraints long since removed, but she appeared otherwise unharmed. Just terrified. Human beings were fragile after enough fear. Rex knew it before anyone else. Lena leaned weakly against the wall, while tears rolled silently down her face. "They said nobody would believe me," she whispered. Caleb's expression hardened slightly. "Who said that?" Lena closed her eyes briefly. The men running the fundraiser. Rain rattled faintly against the underground windows near the ceiling. Somewhere above them, the hospital continued breathing quietly through the night, unaware of the truth unfolding beneath its floors. Caleb handed Lena a bottle of water from his jacket pocket. What did Ethan Whitmore do? Lena stared at Rex before answering. The German shepherd never looked away from her. He tried to stop them, she whispered softly. Silence filled the room. Even Vale stopped moving. Caleb frowned slightly. What? Lena swallowed hard. The others were using the club to move girls between private parties. Ethan found out after one of his friends overdosed last month. Her voice trembled again. He panicked the night of the fundraiser. He argued with the security team upstairs. I recorded part of it. Daniel blinked in disbelief. Then why did Rex drag him out? Lena looked down at the dog resting beside her knees. Because Ethan saw me trying to escape through the service hallway. Her voice cracked softly beneath the hum of old fluorescent lights. And Rex thought Ethan was the threat. Then footsteps thundered suddenly through the hallway outside. The footsteps outside the storage room came fast and heavy, echoing through the underground corridor with the kind of urgency that made hearts tighten before. Minds understood why. Rex was already on his feet before anyone else moved. The German shepherd stepped protectively in front of Lena Brooks, ears rigid, eyes locked on the doorway as shadows stretched beneath the fluorescent lights outside. Caleb Hayes rose slowly beside him, one hand lowering toward the holster at his side, though his voice remained calm. Federal agents, he called into the hallway. Identify yourselves. For one long second, only silence answered. Then Deputy Director Vale exhaled softly beside him. Stand down, he murmured. 2 hospital security officers appeared at the doorway first, followed by 3 FBI tactical agents moving quickly through the records wing. Their faces looked tense but relieved. We intercepted calls upstairs, one of the agents explained. Somebody leaked the hospital location to the press. Caleb glanced toward Lena immediately. Fear flashed across her face again like a wound reopening. But Rex remained still beside her knees, grounding her with his presence alone. Outside the building, the world had already begun changing. News alerts spread faster than storms across the country. Anonymous uploads hit social media within minutes. Surveillance footage from the nightclub. Fragments of the hidden recordings Daniel Mercer preserved. Witness statements. Hospital records. Suddenly, the story no longer belonged to political handlers or television networks. It belonged to ordinary people watching the truth crawl slowly into daylight. By sunrise, protesters gathered outside the nightclub beneath umbrellas and homemade signs, while reporters crowded the sidewalks outside Senator Whitmore's townhouse. Some demanded arrests. Others demanded answers. But inside the FBI field office, the atmosphere felt strangely quiet, like the exhausted silence after a long storm finally breaks. Caleb sat alone in observation room 3 with Rex lying beside his chair. The German shepherd slept lightly now, paws twitching occasionally as dreams moved behind closed eyes. Caleb watched morning light slowly spill across the Capitol skyline through rain-streaked windows, pale gold replacing darkness inch by inch. The door opened quietly behind him. Senator Arthur Whitmore stepped inside without aides or cameras for the first time since any of this began. He looked older now, smaller somehow, like power itself had finally become too heavy to carry. Caleb did not stand. The senator looked down at Rex, sleeping near the chair. That dog saved her life, he said softly. Caleb nodded once. He tried to save your son too. The older man closed his eyes briefly. Overnight, Ethan Whitmore had given a full statement identifying several businessmen and private organizers connected to illegal trafficking operations hidden behind fundraising events and exclusive parties. The arrests had already begun before dawn. Ethan made terrible choices, the senator whispered. But he was trying to stop something after he realized how deep it went. Caleb looked back toward the brightening skyline. Fear makes people freeze. The senator's voice cracked slightly. Sometimes courage arrives too late. Silence settled gently between them. No anger left now. Only exhaustion. Rex opened his eyes then and lifted his head slowly toward the senator. For a moment, the old man simply stared at the dog. Then he knelt carefully despite the stiffness in his knees and rested one trembling hand against Rex's thick fur. Thank you, he whispered. Rex did not move away. Outside the window, Church bells echoed faintly across Washington, while early sunlight touched the marble monuments lining the city like quiet grace descending after a sleepless night. Caleb finally stood and walked toward the glass overlooking the waking streets below. Reporters still crowded sidewalks. Politicians still argued on television. People would spend months fighting over blame and headlines. But none of that mattered much in this moment. Because somewhere in the city, Lena Brooks was alive. Daniel Mercer was safe. And a German shepherd who could not speak had listened to fear when no one else did. Caleb rested one hand gently on Rex's shoulder as the dog stepped beside him at the window. "Good boy,"